Welcome to the last session of CLAM's meetings. And with the tradition that we have established, we have another fantastic panel ahead of us for you. This seminar will be our last seminar of the academic year. And it has been splendid. Your support has been really splendid for us. And we are very, very grateful to you. And we hope that you will continue to lend us your support through the years to come. I think we have found a nice sort of venue for all of us to get together, and I'm so happy to see so many of the faces of colleagues in the field, and I wanted to thank you for supporting us. If you have any ideas about how we can improve the CLAM's seminar, please let us know. And again, programmatic notes, please forgive us. We have only 2 seminars per year, per term, and it will take a bit of time for us to have all the sort of brilliance that is out there in this very room gradually. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. I don't think any one of them has any need for introduction, but we are going to be proceeding along the sort of levels that we had talked about in the flyer. So Dr. Stuart Sears will be going first. Good afternoon, Stuart. Thank you so much for being with us. I just will take a minute to introduce Stuart, and then we'll proceed. I'll introduce each speaker when their time comes. Dr. Stuart Sears is currently an Arabic translator and independent scholar who writes on numismatics and the social and political thought of the late antique and early medieval Near East. Formerly, Stuart has taught early Islamic history at the American University of Cairo. He was the winner of the quadrennial prize of the Royal Belgium Numismatic Society in 1977. His articles include The Tale of Two Cities, Al-Abbasiyya and the Rise of the Aghlabid State. This was in a festschrift for the icon of numismatics, Michael Bates, and Stuart wrote in that festschrift that was. Oh, I'm sorry. This was not Stuart. I made the mistake, right? No, that's true. That's right. That's right. And then he has the revolt of Haris ibn Suraj and the counter-marking of Umayyad dirhams in early 18th century Khorasan. This was in the studies in honor of our very good colleague, Fred McGraw-Donner, and which was edited by Paul Kopp. Okay, so when I'm sure you all know Stuart. Stuart, without further ado, please, the podium is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank Parvene for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's with the pandemic, a lot of us have kind of fallen off the radar screen, and it's a wonderful opportunity to reconnect with a lot of wonderful people, and I see your names and faces out there. I'd like to also acknowledge Mike and Stefan. I've known Mike and Stefan now for about 40 years. We were just talking about that a few weeks ago. And the numismatic community is a small community, and it's the friendships that you form over the years looking at this are very, very important. And I want to say with Michael, I've learned a great deal from him, and he has been a mentor for me for many, many years. And it's an honor to be able to share a panel with him. And finally, I'd like to say happy Ramadan. Without further ado, I'm going to talk about the politics of believing, the motif of the righteous warrior on early Muslim coins. Let's see if I can, there we go. Okay, the coins that I'm going to be talking about are tentatively called the Standing Caliph coins. They have a motif of a warrior, and this warrior is distinguished by wearing a sword and wearing something that has been identified as a whip. The reverse of these coins has a pole on steps, surmounted by an orb or globe, and on copper, that pole has an ellipse around it that Stefan has identified with the Greek letter phi for false. Nevertheless, the underlying image is a pole with a globe on top. And on many of the copper coins, you also find the image of a sun right next to it. What makes these coins really unusual is they do not resemble any Byzantine prototype that preceded them, and at least outwardly, they do not resemble the Reformed coins that followed them. When I look at these, this Standing Caliph series, and with this, what we're going to call the symbol on the steps, the first thing that occurs to me, is very unusual, is that this more closely resembles Iranian coinage than it does Syrian coinage. Now, on the left, I have coins from Syria, where you on the upper left you have a Constance II type that imitates relatively closely the Byzantine prototype, and below that you have one of the pictorial coins, which has the image of a horse leaping. One of the characteristics of Syrian coinage is it is very conservative. You do not see the depiction of human beings, with the exception of this Standing Caliph issue, and with the exception of when they imitate Byzantine prototypes. At the same time, whenever you see, whenever it is innovative, it tends to present animals in a kind of a wild aspect. They're leaping, they're jumping, or attacking. In contrast, in Iran, you have the imitation of the Sasanian prototype, but it's always very innovative, or frequently innovative. Here you can see on the upper right, fingers pointing up. And when they do represent animals, they usually have a human being controlling that animal, taming that animal. And if the animal appears by itself, the animal is either domesticated, in other words, it's a horse standing, or even a lion walking, not leaping, walking, or it is an imaginary creature. Now, when I look at the so-called Standing Caliph type, I think of an issue here that we have was probably produced by al-Hajjaj in Iran sometime in the later 70s, perhaps the early 80s. And what we have here is we have in the reverse an imam raising his hands in prayer, but he is girded with a sword. We also have an image on the bust of the monarch, which is a circle, and that image is generally considered a symbol for the sun. It represents a solar disk. That's widely used across the Near East, but it can also be demonstrated for particularly this period of time in Iran and Syria. The head of the imam, the standing imam, has the hair arranged in what sort of looks like a solar disk. And that's a hairstyle that is characteristic of Iran. I have here another issue. This one is from near Khorasan, slightly later. And here you can see the hairstyle down below in the circle, which is exactly in the shape of a solar disk. Again, we have the image of a warrior, and the warrior is girded with a sword. This time he also has a spear. On the monarch, on the obverse, we have what looks like a rosette with a dot in the center. And that is also a symbol for the sun. And that appears in many different places in this period, in Iran and in Syria. Now, if we go back and look at al-Hajjaj's coins, we find that we have another coin where we have a worshiper who's pointing up, and the hand is very large, and it's pointing up, and you can see barely in the margin the remnant of a sun and crescent design. So it's pointing up to a sun and a crescent. What is interesting is the legend to the right says Hajjaj, and to the left, the first part of the legend says Eros, which means victorious. So it's pointing up to the sun, and it's saying victorious. So he's not girded with a sword, but the idea of victory and being victorious is definitely there. Now, if we look at the obverse, we have the image of a Iranian king, Sasanian style king, with al-Hajjaj's name legend. And around that image, we have a version of the Shahada. You know, Bismillah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. In the name of God, there is no God. Muhammad is the messenger of God. The physical arrangement of this legend in a radial design resembles the rays of the sun that emanate from that solar disk. And we see it even more strikingly on a dram of this period. Again, this is al-Hajjaj bin Yusuf. And we have Bismillah, la ilaha illallah, wahdahu, Muhammad Rasulullah. And again, that arrangement resembles the rays of the sun. So the representation of, in some sense, the representation of God is the sun, and the representation of the ruler is the sun. Now here I have a copper coin from the same period. This is on the reverse. You can see the image of a sun with a human face. Okay, so this is the kind of the connection I think that we can all make is that of kind of the Sun King. The human being, somehow a human being is the manifestation of God or manifestation of the sun, and vice versa. What's interesting is on the obverse, we have the traditional image of a Sasanian king. And there's a marginal legend there that says Bismillah, Muhammad. Now, the coin by the design can be attributed to general region of Western Iran for the period of between, let's say, 75 and 100 Hijra era. And during that time, there are only two governors that I can find with the name Muhammad. One of them is Muhammad bin Yusuf, the brother of al-Hajjaj, and the other is Muhammad bin al-Qasim, the son-in-law and nephew of al-Hajjaj. And those two ruled somewhere between 75 and 90, around 695 to 710. So these people were in proximity to al-Hajjaj, and the image of the sun would then reflect the kind of the same kind of mental milieu, a political religious milieu as what we had previously. Oops, let's see. Oops. All right. Okay. So on this basis, I would look at the symbol on steps, tentatively named symbol on steps, and I would look at the globe as a representation of the sun. And what we often find is this motif is oftentimes juxtaposed with an image of the sun. And this particular coin comes from Spain, but we have it in Syria and many different mints where the image of the sun is located immediately next to that pole with a globe on top. The sun, if this is correct, I would argue that the sun is a visual image of the Tawheed. If you look at the sun right now, and if I were to, here we have a coin, we have the sun on one side, and we have Muhammad Rasulullah on the other side. Muhammad is the messenger of God on the other side. Well, the normal arrangement of legends places the Tawheed on one side and the Risala on the other side. So with the Tawheed absent on this obverse and replaced with the sun, I would suggest that the sun does indeed represent the Tawheed. It's simply a visual representation. This is not something specific to Islam. This is something that probably many people across the Middle East and North Africa adopted and used to convey the same idea. Now, it's interesting, if you were, well, we'll get to that later when we talk. So that's what I got there. Now, if we go back to the image of the standing caliph, or the standing figure girded with a sword and a whip, I wanted to just, we find that this image occurs with several different legends around surrounding legends. Oftentimes it will have the name al-Malik. It will say, this one says Abdullah al-Malik Amir al-Mu'mineen. So by the servant of God, al-Malik, the commander of the faithful. Now, we have Tony Goodwin was clever enough to identify a passage in the Tabari where we actually have a reference to this, I mean, at least to the whip, al-Malik and the whip. Sorry, there we go. Okay. I just want to read this passage. This is a letter from Khalid bin Abdullah, who was the governor general in the East, briefly under al-Malik. He is also a member of the Umayyad family. Previously, he led an uprising in Basra against the Zubayrids and then fled to Damascus. So he was a close confidant of al-Malik and a trusted confidant. And in 74 Hijrah, he was briefly a governor general. And he sent this letter to some rebels to warning them. And he says, God has imposed the duty of jihad on his servants and required obedience to those who govern them. He who participates in jihad does so only for his own benefit. But he who gives up jihad for God will be forsaken by God. O Muslims, know who it is whom you have so boldly defied. It is al-Malik bin Marwan, the commander of the faithful, a man of no weaknesses, from whom rebels can expect no indulgence. On the one who defies him falls his whip, and on the one who opposes him falls his sword. So we have here textual evidence describing exactly what we see in the image here for this standing figure, this warrior. Now, a couple of things are interesting here. The sword is a military weapon, an offensive military weapon. You go hunting with a sword, and you don't defend yourself. You usually attack people with a sword. So it's a good image for jihad. The whip, on the other hand, it's not so much a military weapon as an instrument for punishing people. So you have both an image there that evokes the idea of jihad, as well as the image that evokes the idea of punishment by the ruler of his subjects. Now, we also have one of the legends that accompanies this figure of this warrior, this righteous warrior, is the legend in the name of God. There is no God but God alone. Muhammad is the messenger of God. This is really one of the very earliest statements of the Shahada, or as we know it. It doesn't appear much earlier than this, so it is significant to find it here. I think the origin of the Shahada goes back to attempts by early rulers to claim sacral authority. I have here the obverse of a coin of Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, who was a governor general in Iraq in the mid 670s until about 685. And in this coin, this is an early coin, 55, 674. On the margin of the legend says, Allahu al-Malik, God is the king. And I can provide, there's many other examples where rulers insinuate their proximity to God, or the proximity to God, or their role as God's agent. But this is pretty blunt. Now, the reaction to that, of course, was there was a pious opposition, and Kharijites were among the most prominent and vocal members of this opposition. And so the opposing view appealed to some form of impersonal judgment. And here we have on the left, we have a coin of Qatari bin al-Fuja'a from Al-Shahura in the year 66. And if you can read the Arabic, it says, Bismillah la hukm illallah. In the name of God, there is no judgment except by God. In the name legend, instead of the name of the ruler, it translates that statement into Pahlavi. And I think it's quite significant, because otherwise rulers would have inscribed their names. And by inscribing that phrase, it essentially is depersonalizing this coin and reaching for a more impersonal source of judgment. In the same year, in Bishapur, just not very far away from Al-Shahura, the Zubairid governor al-Malik bin Abdullah inscribed the following legend: Bismillah, Muhammad Rasulullah. In the name of God, Muhammad is the messenger of God. And I believe that this is a reply to the claim by the Kharijite, by Qatari bin al-Fuja'a. And by claiming Muhammad is the messenger of God, he is identifying a human model who conveyed God's judgment to his ummah. So it addresses the kind of the impersonal nature of God's judgment, while at the same time establishing a role for human beings as an instrument of God's judgment. And again, we have here, you see the breast ornament is a rosette with a pellet in the center. And that is now common on a lot of the coins in Iran and Syria as well at this time. Several years later, the Musa bin Zubair went further, and he struck this coin, or presumably it is his. It was struck in Kufa around the year 689 to 90. And he has Bismillah la Allah illallah wahdahu in the margin, and Muhammad Rasulullah in the name legend. So he is, this is one of the very, very earliest statements of the Tawheed anywhere that I know of, certainly on coins. And he emphasizes the unity of God. And then he attaches to that the statement that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Muhammad is the instrument of God. And if we reflect on the fact that the rulers, many of the Umayyad Zubayrid rulers are attaching themselves to God. When you say there is no God but God alone, you are in a sense saying there is no God but the ruler alone, or there is no ruler but God alone. You are making a claim for absolute kingship. And when you say Muhammad is a messenger of God, you're providing an example of that form of governance. And Muhammad brings God's judgment to the people. So whether the ruler is a manifestation of God or identical to God, the people know God's judgment through the ruler. Okay, and now this is something very interesting. So the Kharijite response, we have this countermark on a coin that probably is from the same period of time. It says, La hukum illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. So the phrase, there is no judgment of God alone, he has no partner. So this is almost identical to the phrase of Qathari bin al-Fujah. So this would be, from probably the early 70s. Countermarking was common at that time. And that's when Qathari held power. Well, what's interesting is the formula is very similar to the formula that you have on Reformed coins, where they say there is no God but God alone, he has no partner. Here we're saying there is no judgment but God alone, he has no partner. So it appears that there is a long-running dispute between the Kharijites on the one hand and Zubayrid, Umayyad rulers on the other hand, over the nature of God and the role of the human ruler in administering God's judgment. And so the Kharijites are emphasizing the impersonal nature of God, and the Zubayrids and Umayyads are emphasizing the human agency of the role of the ruler in administrating God's judgment. Okay, now there's one other point I want to bring out, and that is the phrase Khalifatullah, or the Caliph of God, often appears with this warrior that we have. Here we have Khalifah and Amir al-Mu'mineen. And so Khalifah invokes the idea of the Quran. Now, the idea of the Quran is already evident when you say Muhammad is a messenger of God. But Khalifa sort of directs your attention more specifically to the idea of Caliph. And here we have an inscription from Mecca in the year 80 that quotes the Quran, and it quotes a Quran that is very important in the interpretation of the word Khalifa. It says, "O David, we have indeed made you a vicegerent on earth, so judge between men in justice and do not follow your desires, which will mislead you from the path of God. Verily, for those who stray from the path of God is severe chastisement, for those who have forgotten the day of reckoning." So certainly there is then, when this title appears on the coins of al-Malik, there is a sense that he is acting as a judge, and there is a sense that he is punishing. He is not just waging jihad against external enemies. He is punishing members of the community for straying from the right path. Okay. Now, I would finally, I will argue that the so-called standing caliph and symbol on steps type that we have been discussing is a visual representation of the legends on reformed coins. So on the reformed coins, you have the Tawheed, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharik lahu, and then the Surat al-Ikhlas. If you recite those phrases, you will have an image in your head, which is no different from the sun. Okay, everything you say on those things would also apply to the sun. And as I suggest, the sun is a physical representation of those legends. Similarly, you have the mission verse, which says that Muhammad is a messenger of God. He sent him with guidance and the religion of truth that he may uplift it above every religion, though the unbelievers believe or be averse. Okay, so this is a reasonable representation of the image that you have of a warrior girded with a sword and whip. I will stop right there to make sure that everybody has time to speak. I think that the standing caliph with this symbol on steps is a very, very important coin. It's a transitional coin that bridges bridges the gap between the traditional imitative coinages that predominated in Syria and the highly innovative reform type introduced by al-Malik bin Marwan at the end of the 7th century. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Stuart. This was just fascinating. I don't know where to begin. I'm not going to start now, but this was really incredible. I'm just wondering whether you have published this or not for the time being.
No, I have not published it, and I'm interested in hearing people's comments and feedback. And
yes.
I'm sharing this for the first time. So thank you all for
fascinating. Thank you very much. We go to our next speaker now, who is sure to bewilder us as well. Professor Stefan Heidemann, who has served since 2011 as Professor of Islamic Studies at the Universität Hamburg, and he is the Director of Roman Islam Center of the Comparative Empire and Transcultural Studies. This is a vow, Stefan, in Hamburg. He has started since 2020, this project. It goes to 2025. He is the eye of the ERC Advanced Grant Project, the early Islamic Empire at Work, the view from regions towards the center. And of course, last but not least, he's the editor-in-chief of Der Islam. And Stefan formerly served as Associate Curator of Islamic Art at the Metropolitan Museum and as Professor of Islamic History and Material Culture at the Bard Graduate Center, New York. He got his habilitation at Jena, Stuart, yes? Yes, okay. At Jena University in 2001, his PhD at Prague University, 1993. He has been working throughout his years of service to the field, actually, he has been cooperating with German, British, French, and Syrian archaeological missions in Al-Raqqa, Damascus, Aleppo, Mesa, Balkh, Karakorum, and other sites. I wish you could have taken us with you to all of these places, Stefan. We are very much looking forward to your talk. Please begin. The podium is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Parvanit and Meryl, for organizing this. And I'm very pleased to share this panel with my distinct colleagues, Stuart and Michael. Michael was also a mentor of mine, and Stuart is a lifelong friend. So I know him longer than the time was before, since our early student days. And I have basically the same topic, but you see, we'll see that there is quite a different discussions and approach. While we have seen here more with Stuart an approach from the visual arts, I go a little bit more into techniques of numismatics. So, and these questions of early Islam and how theology of Islam developed and the idea of the empire evolved has entertained me for a long time, and it is based from the coins and the ideas on the Hellenistic Roman Iranian foundations. So, and it works together with Christianity, Judaism, Neoplatonism, and Zoroastrianism. Increasingly, and more, also studies evolve beyond the pure literary tradition. In this discourse, imagery and text messages on coins became more important, as Stuart showed us today. And the knowledge of this coinage has grown tremendously since the 1990s. No other coin type marks the turning point of the formulation of the Islamic universal empire in its own right better than the famous Standing Caliph type minted between 691 to 696, as Stuart showed us. It stands in between those coin types without any recognizable imperial iconography, and then the epigraphic one with the word of God as the iconic symbol of the Islamic empire and its religion. Although the Standing Caliph coin was not the definite answer of the question of an appropriate representation of the new empire and its state religion, the Standing Caliph represents for the first time the power of that empire, like the Byzantine emperor and the Sasanian Shahanshah before him. The attached inscription states a universal claim, the commander of the believers, to the rightful Khalifat Allah, deputy of God. The iconic symbols on the opposite side will entertain us most of this talks. The bar or globe on a pole of steps. And we see in the upper line also the portrait of the Shahanshah and the lance under an arc and a kind of V-shaped object. They were obviously not of the same central importance as the depiction of the deputy of God in the invocation or the invocation of the messengership of Muhammad and the unity of God, which we find in the text and which we can found on all of these coins. The first silver dirham continued the portrait of the Sasanian Shahanshah. The present contribution will focus on the reading, especially on the reading of the reverse, the bar or globe on steps, and I have a different interpretation than my colleague Stuart. I come to the interpretation by analyzing the numismatic context and coin imagery on these coins. So first of all, some of my premises. First, in the 2nd, 7th century, we see an ongoing separation between image and text on the one side, and the use of the images as a mark of value, not as a representation. Second is the role of the cross as a mark of value and as a symbol of the Byzantine Empire. And the third premises is the values of sword, the bar, globe, and pole of steps on the one side, on the one level, as a mark of value, and a possible meaning as a symbol of urban pride, which is quite the opposite of what Stuart said. So separation between text and image. In the 7th century, coin designs, image and text separated from each other increasingly. The coin design was meant to be a recognizable mark of value in the first place to assure the acceptance of coins. The text on the coins contained usually the necessary administrative information, and in the case of the Islamic Empire, also the representation of the new faith. Images were secondary. Islamic armies swiftly conquered 3 major zones of monetary circulation and took over much of the fiscal and monetary organization. In the center, the former Byzantine territories, in the east, the Sasanian Empire, and in the west, the Germanic, North Africa, and Spain. In Syria, the workhorse of the fiscal cycle of taxation and state expenditure was a gold dinar, was a gold solidus numisma at about 4.5 grams. The money used for the daily purchases, however, was a copper follis, which was issued by the treasury and sold to money changers who sold them against gold coins from the public.
Stefan, I am so sorry for interrupting you, so sorry, but your images are not large enough. Can you, by any chance, yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
You should have told me before, because I'm working here with two
sorry, but
good. So
okay, yeah.
So in Spain and North Africa, the monetary economy had been in decline since the 5th century. Byzantine coinage was much more diverse than in the Eastern Mediterranean. A system of solidus, semisis, and trientis were struck. In North Africa, Carthage was the only mint to continue striking petty coinage in Africa. And we have seen the Sasanian drum, which was the coinage of the fiscal cycle, and it was a uniform silver drum of about 4.2 gram, which was struck in the reign of Khosrow II in about 34 minutes. In Hellenistic antiquity, to understand the vernacular, the grammar of coins, in Hellenistic antiquity, until the 7th century, the image and the accompanying text were usually almost concurrent. The portrait of the ruler stood as most meaningful symbol of the empire, and the reverse tended to depict a meaningful religious and occasionally an imperial symbol. In the course of the 7th century, the symbolic iconic design and the accompanying administrative text separated continuously from each other in the Byzantine and in the Sasanian Empire. The design, the image, became foremost a function of mark of value to assure acceptance of the coinage. The image lost increasingly its purpose to serve as symbol of empire and religion. The separation in function of image and text started slowly in the period of Heraclius and Khosrow II. A few examples should illustrate this. In Syria, the separation is most obvious in the development of the copper coinage. For example, the so-called imperial image copper coins, which can be assumed to be struck between 660s and the 690s, depict clearly recognizable Byzantine emperor, most commonly Constans II, with crosses, although the administrative Arabic text indicating min and in addition often a validating remark are unambiguous. This inscription established Arabic as a language of the regulating and validating authority. Almost no attempt was made to represent the new state or religion on coins. Petty coinage, first and foremost, served as a means of exchange, and the acceptability in circulation was primary. The immobilization of the coin design, meaning the transformation of the design to a mere mark of value, began already under Khosrow II and its successors. The last portrait of the Shahanshahs and the design of the reverse with the fire altar and the two attendants became almost indistinguishable from one ruler to the other into the Islamic Empire, so that we have the inscription Muhammad Rasulullah on the coin of the obverse on the right side doesn't mean that Muhammad is depicted as a Sasanian ruler. So it is, the image is detached. And we have it especially in the Caliphal coinage, in the early Caliphal coinage, where we still have the image of the Shahanshah as mark of value, and the imperial symbols, on the one hand, the profession of faith as symbol of religion, and the Caliph as deputy of God on the other hand. But as mark of value, the Shahanshah remained on the coins. And it even was the butt of the joke. So in Arabic text, it's called Baghliya, the donkey-like coins, because the wings of the Sasanian coins look as funny as donkey ears. The Zubayrid images on the Zubayrid coinage and the early coinage of the Marwanids shows as mark of value always the Shahanshah and sometimes the fire altar. So if we look as the cross as mark of value and imperial symbol, we should look at the normal numisma. After having generally established images as iconic marks of value in the first place, I will turn now to different forms of crosses and their derivatives as marks of value, with reference to North Africa and the Syrian circulation zone. The mark of value of the numisma, so the gold dinar, is the cross potent on steps. The mint of Constantinople and Carthage continue to mint different gold denominations, which are distinguished by the form of crosses. The sign of the Byzantine numisma was the cross potent on steps. The sign for the Byzantine symissus is the cross standing on a globe. The sign for the trimissus is the cross potent, but frequently with a surrounding circular legend or with a cross in a rest. And especially because there must be a mark of value between the symissus and the trimissus, the third of a gold dinar, because of their very small difference in gold. And if we look at the earliest Arabic series, Latin series of the Islamic Empire, we see that it retained some of the Byzantine features. This is, we have the numisma, then we have the semises, the nifs, with a globe, a palette on a pole on steps, and the tremises, a T on steps as a mark of value. If it's a T for tremises or triens in the Latin-speaking world, it's a speculation. But at least the T is here seen, the T cross, as a mark of value. And if we look at the first Reformed series, we find the same. We find the dinar, the full dinar, the nifs has a palette as mark of value. And the sults is small enough and has no palette as mark of value. Now let us go to the Syrian situation. The situation was different than in North Africa. The main gold coin in circulation and the only gold coin minted was the numisma or later dinar. A mark for the distinction between tremises and the semises was not necessary. In Syria, therefore, a greater latitude was allowed for the appearances on the symbol of the reverse. The steps of the cross potent seem to be the most distinct element on the reverse. The steps, we have a tempering with the cross on the gold coins in Syria in difference to the invariable appearance of the fire altar with the attendants on the silver coins in the Iranian part of the empire. And on the obverse, we have the recognizable Byzantine emperor Heraclius. But we see that on the imitations, one part of the cross potent was removed. And in the second series, we see what Stuart showed us, a globe, a palette on a pole on steps. The design we maintained to be a recognizable iconic mark of value. The pole on steps, now the globe on a pole on steps. And the image of the three emperors and the meaningful Arab text praises the unity of God and Muhammad as his messengers is the essence of the imperial state religions. Not so much the images. This changed something with the change to the caliphal image. So the question, why was the cross altered? What made it so basically different from the head of the Shahanshah or the fire altar as the ultimate symbol of Zoroastrianism for the ultimate system of Christianity? The awareness of the cross as a symbol, not only as a mere mark of value on coins, can be seen in a comparatively limited series on early imitative gold coins, probably struck in Damascus in the period of Muawiyah. At this stage of the development and in this iconographic context, the new design was probably regarded by the contemporaries first of all as an altered cross. The Tau cross of the St. Anthony's cross is the St. Anthony's or Egyptian cross since antiquity. There are numerous, not only in Western art, depiction on Jesus on a cross, on a Tau cross. It is an established symbol of Christianity. It is not an Islamic symbol. It is not a de-Christianized cross. It is a Christian cross in the eyes of the majority of the Christians, especially in Egypt and Syria. But the Byzantine numismata with the cross potent might be more identified here as a Byzantine symbol of the rival Byzantine Empire. As John Moorhead explains, In Byzantium, the cross potent had become almost an imperial system, which denotes the victory of the emperor over the enemies. This is what we don't want to have in the Islamic Empire. Thus, the Tau cross could also be better termed as the Byzantinized cross. As political and religious symbols, cross and altar were different. The cross potent was not only a political symbol of power or a rival emperor, but also a worshipped object like the icon of Christ. So it was an idolatry from the Islamic vantage point. This argument becomes even more evident by comparison with the silver drams of the Standing Caliph series in Damascus, 693. On the obverse, the fire altar, the symbol on the obverse was the fire altar, as a symbol of Zoroastrianism, was replaced then with the image of the Shahanshah, which is meaningless except as a mark of value. So we can also see that the de-Byzantinized object of on steps is a mark of value. So what is the meaning of the globe on a pole on steps? As we have established now that the bar globe on a pole of steps as a mark of value in the first place, let us now look as a symbolic value as a probably meaningful object in the second place. The iconic significance of the bar globe on a pole of steps and the varieties are no longer known to us in the Islamic tradition, the narrative sources or parallels in the growing corpus of Islamic art. The different representation must be considered as a group. Various interpretations have been suggested, and one we just heard from Stuart, but none is entirely satisfactory because of the lack of parallel comparative sources. There had been, aside from Stuart's interpretation from George C. Miles, that it represents the Qadi, the ceremonial rod of the prophet, or by Najjar Shamil, that it is represents the omphalos, the center of the world, parallel to the cross of Golgotha, and as a kutub, a linchpin of the world. And she stresses it as that what we find on the copper coins is just the rotation of the world around the linchpin. But this foreshortened side is not yet in art as well, and especially not in a kind of perspective. So how can we interpret it is, if we look to parallels, and this is a methodological question, then we find a globe on a pole of step is a usual symbol of urban pride in the Byzantine world. We have numerous depictions of here the map of Maraba in Jordan, of Jerusalem, with something, it may be a capital or a pole on steps as a symbol of urban pride. And if we look at al-Rasas in Jordan, we have again in front of the city gate as a symbol of urban pride, a pole on steps, and the same we find restored by the Antiquity Authority in Jordan and Jerash at the city gate, a column with an object probably on top of it. And I forgot to put it into this presentation. We have a Roman depiction on a globe on a pole as symbol of urban pride. And it may be related to Jerusalem or it may not. We have no parallels for that to have a methodologically sound explanation. So what is the object of the reverse on copper coins, where we have this little circle around it? So here it is a kind, if we take it as mark of value, the M is a Greek 40 as a mark of value, and we can somehow say that this pole on steps with a circle around might be also a mark of value. what wouldn't be out of any idea is that it might be a fee for follies. So to have this image in line with that of the Standing Caliph, the pole on a column on steps. So in conclusion, the close design of the design of gold coins and copper coins, where the pole is crossed with an ellipse, shows and I try to make it obvious. It must be first seen as a mark of value in the circulation of the currency. Less so because there is a separation between text and image going on in the 6th century, less so as a specific symbol for the new empire. These are the two functions. And it may be that because we have parallel descriptions, images of a capital and a globe on a pole, on steps, in mosaics, in a late Roman Byzantine imagery, that here a symbol of urban pride is meant. And just at the end, because Stuart also ended with this, if we take the epigraphic dirham and dinar in the vernacular of coin imagery in late antiquity, so we have on the one side always the portrait of the ruler or sovereign, and after the Zubairis, it is replaced by the word of God, and this is the most important surah, the Surat al-Ikhlas. It takes the place of the emperor, and it is then that the Khalifa is the Khalifatullah, the deputy of God, not as a deputy on coins, and it takes over the
Okay.
one second. It takes over the Kharijite, la hukm illa lillah, no judgment, no sovereignty without God. And the religious side has the administrative inscriptions and the Shahada.
Okay, Stefan, please, thank you so much. That's excellent. Just on time. I was going to stop you to leave enough. Thank you so much, Stefan. You can see how images can have two, obviously separate interpretations, different interpretations, and that's what makes it fascinating. So this whole seminar has been a little bit of a tribute also to Dr. Michael Bates, from whom both of our previous speakers have learned, I'm sure, quite a bit. And we are just waiting for Michael to come back. Michael, come.
Hello.
Hello, Michael.
Shall I can begin?
Yes, you can begin. But so yeah, you can begin, but we need your actual live image. Yeah, that's it.
All right. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
It has been a bit of a surprise to me, or perhaps not a surprise, but at any rate, to be reminded that the three other participants today are all could be considered former students of mine. I would emphasize former. Certainly, I have thought of them as colleagues for many years, and in fact, even very often my mentors. I learned from all three of you, as I have so far today, and I've been very grateful, and I am very, very glad to be in this. So, do we have my paper. How do we? Sorry, we
You,
didn't have the paper.
you just have to bring up your PowerPoint, Mike. Just start with your PowerPoint. Go to your PowerPoint.
Hmm? Okay. There, is that what you want? Are you,
Okay, we're not seeing you. So you need to share.
Use the share screen button at the bottom green item.
the green button?
Yes.
Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Anna, yes.
Post-reformed but unreformed is the title of my talk. It is I beg your pardon for these problems. Okay, and there is the longer version of it. To serve as a more informative title, I am concerned with the coinage of Sasanian type, continuing the Arab Sasanian sequence that was issued after the introduction of the reformed coinage, which started in the year 78 or 698, with this sort of coin from Armenia and from 5 other mints, I think. Sabor is still to be verified, and continued in the next year with something like 42 mints, of which the coin shown here is typical. I wanted to have I left space on the screen here for a map of those 42 some odd mints. I believe there are more now than 42, but I could not find it and mount it. So we will have to do without it. But the mints in the early period extended from, in the year 79, from Damascus, a new mint which had no coinage before for a long, long time, for centuries, out to Khorasan. Now, how do we explain, after this massive introduction of new coinage, the coins are both very common, struck all over the place, including also in the north, in Iran province and Armenia and Azerbaijan, where there had been no minting before. How can we then explain that we have coins like this one, which is dated in the year 80, after the introduction of reformed coinage? It in fact looks like an older coin. It in fact names al-Hajjaj in Arabic, but with a slight change of the inscription in the margin. So the coin on the right in this image, the coin of Sabur, dated 80, was certainly minted in Sabur and in the year 80, 700 of the Common Era. But how do we know when and where the other one was minted? Do the words Bishapur, and the date 80, Hushtat, mean anything, or are they just there to make the coin look legitimate? I don't really have an answer to that yet, but that is what we are going to consider today. How did it happen that these coins could be minted again after the introduction of the new coinage? No one has really studied this coinage, this post-reform, unreformed coinage, to try to figure out where and when the coins were struck or how the minting was organized. And so I have been doing that for some months, if not years, perhaps all my career. But at least getting serious about it in the past few months. We have three groups of coins of this classification: post-reformed but unreformed. We have various coins of the Fars mints. We have various coins from Kirman mints. When I say they're from those mints, of course, I mean that those are the mint names on the coins. We're not quite clear if the coins come, in fact, from those places. And then some odds and ends, which one could say, well, there are many more than three groups, but at least there are a few odds and ends of coins. I will only be talking today about the first group, the Fars mint coins. I had dreams or hopes of dealing with all of them, but it just didn't turn out to be possible for reasons of time and complexity, and because these coins turned out to be more interesting and complicated than I thought. So here we have a table of the coins. I must insist on the importance of making tables of this sort for studying any Islamic coinage. No more, please, no more alphabetical lists of mints. And please, no more numerical list of the dates on coins when the dates are of mixed eras. As you can see, there are coins dated 70 that were actually minted in the year 82. And this happens, is too simplistic. We need to put things into geographical and chronological order if we want to understand what is happening. Here, I put the geographical order reading from left to right, because that's the way we normally read from west to east in the United States and elsewhere. Arab scholars might put them from east to west, and we would see new and perhaps more valuable insights. But this is the way that I have done it. You see the mints of Fars province across the top, Arajan, Sabur, to give them their more recent Arab names. Sabur and Bish are the same mint. Tawaj, Istakhar, Darabjir, Jarash, and I'm afraid that I'm blocked and I can't see, but you can see the last name on the column. Well, at first it looks a bit like a mess, but doing this clarified some things. We see, first of all, that Arajan, the district of Fars province to the furthest west, had no coinage during this period. Why that is, I'm not sure, because the mint WYHC was one of the major mints of the Caliphate before that, and of the Sasanians before that. I suspect that somewhere between that city, Arajan, and the city of Bishapur, there was a mine, a big mine, but so far that hasn't been established. The idea is supported by the fact that the charts of the gold-silver relationship, gold-silver ratio in these coins that Gordis published about a half century ago show them to be all made from the same silver with a very tightly defined, uniform gold content of about 0.1%, indicating that they are not metropolitan mints, but rather the eastern, but provincial mints. Okay, then we turn to Bishapur, also known as to the Arabs as Sabor. At first, I had one column for this one place, but I divided it into two with the idea that perhaps we can see some meaning by doing so. Of course, the ones, the reformed dirhams naming Sabor are only reformed dirhams, and we see them occurring in every year. It was the most important mint in Fars province. But we also see that from Bishapur in every year, we also have coins still naming Hajjaj. That's what the H is for. The H at the first two rows are legitimate coins of his government. In the year 79, the new reformed coinage was generally introduced, but we have a coin, one single coin of Sabor that might be real. I have not been able to see the article and picture of that coin yet. So what happens in 79? Not just the introduction of reformed coins, but we have the introduction of a new coinage, which I've marked here as HI, Hajjaj imitative, which has a different inscription, as you saw. And for the next 5 years, these two coinages seem to run concurrently. I don't know exactly what is going on, but I do think it indicates that these are two different sources. Here's an example of the Sabor reformed coins. All the reformed coins look much alike. I'm not going to go into the details, but these coins do have on the obverse on the right side a statement of the place where they were struck and the date when they were struck. So we know where we are with the issue of these coins. The Bish coins always have, or rather Arab Sasanian coins always have the mint and date on the reverse, so we know where we are with those coins, except the dates sometimes are a little hard to identify. So this is a coin of al-Hajjaj himself. That is, it's a continuation, it's the end of a series of coins that he ordered, making important changes in his government to the last of the Arab Sasanian coins, including by adding, as you can see, a concentric inscription that starts at 3 o'clock on the coin face and runs clockwise around the margin of the coin in the name of God. Hope I can remember it. Muhammad Rasulullah, and so on. The concentric type. And this is one that compares this with the earlier coin we saw of the Bish mint with the date 79, also, which simply has in the margin, starting at the same point, but much shorter, Bismillah. Looking at these two coins, we see that really there is no possibility that these were issued by the same minters. They look a lot alike, but there are all sorts of details that are different and distinctive. You have, for example, different ornaments on the ruler's chest. In the one case, a kind of medallion on the irregular coins, the not so much official coins. On the official coins, we have a triangle of dots, although it's a little hard to see. And the general aspect of the coins, I would say, suggests that you have die engravers for these new coins, the Bismillah coins, who were from the cadre of die engravers, the craft of die engravers. They were the same people, perhaps have been engraving elsewhere, but they're not the same person or people who engraved the original coin. Then we have, here's the mint. Now we will get back to 3 mints that are kindred here. The mint of Bishapur of Tart, which is the first Arab Masr in Fars province, Tawaj. They abandoned it more or less, but it seems to have flourished because it still had a mint. And then St, which is one of the more important cities of the province, is Stacher, all with Bismillah, all related, no doubt, but indeed, how do we put them into context and how do we attribute them? I do not know. So we've dealt with now 4 of the 5 sub-provinces or districts of Fars, with the westernmost Ve Az Ahmed Kavad district, or which is WYHC Mint, with the Khwarizm or Sabur Khwara or province, the Sabur Bishapur district, with Istakhr district, and with Ardashir Khura district. Ardashir Khura was the capital of the province. And finally, we have some coins of the 5th of this district, which is the Darabjir district. And we see there that, in fact, that district produced reformed coins after the reform, as it should. But in the year 82 or 70, we have a rebellion, the rebellion of Abdurrahman ibn Muhammad ibn al-Asha. And the coinage in his name, which you can see across the lower part of my table in the years 82 and 83, identified by the letter A, certainly is of the traditional type. He was very much a traditionalist. And in Darabjir, it was normal for some reason, and had been for about a half a century, to have the coins dated not in the Hijra era, but in the continuation of the Yazdegerd era. So they are dated 70 in this case, but that 70 works out to be 82, 83, and 2 of the minor mints. And the 3rd minor mint, well, we'll get to it in a minute. Here are the 2 minor mints, the district mints of the Darabjir sub-district. These are the sub-sub-district. And this finally is the concluding new issue in the table, which is the one mentioned in the lower right corner in the year 83, where we seem to have a reversion after the intervention of Abdullah's rebellion, and return to the minting of the imitation Hijaz types at Bishapur and at Baza in the Darabjir district. Now the question is, are these Hijaz imitation coins really a production, a random production, or will you see we have these coins coming out of 4 different mints at one time or another? Is it simply a private issue, or is there some state authority encouraging that? Here's the last coin of Fasa, which is identifiable by the letter P left of the altar. That's how we know that this is not a Darabjir mint coin. So this is essentially what I had to say. If I could have gone on, I would, well, in the future, I'm going to go on, if I can, to look at these Kirman issues. So one of them here, and try to find out if there's any rhyme or reason in their production. And then we have these various groups of coins that are not related to one another, but nevertheless appear at mint, such as Basra, BCLA, one of the capitals, one of the 2 capitals of al-Mashriq, following the reform, at Jai mint, at a mint called Anbir, various coins from SK or Sijistan, and an issue from the mint of Yaz. This is more or less how far my research has gone. I certainly would welcome questions, and I thank you very much for participating in this conference. Now, I can't hear you. Wait.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you so much for that interesting presentation. And we have time now to go to a question and answer period. I would like to ask Stefan and Stuart to please sort of follow the questions and read it yourself, because I want to I want to for once concentrate. Yes, you follow the questions. Can you do that? Yes, one after the other, maybe.
What do
But-
you mean as follows questions?
Oh,
Uh,
the questions are in the chat box.
Okay,
Yeah, you
Uh,
see?
there's about 35 messages. Not all of these are questions.
Right. But just a moment, Stefan.
It would be good if you guide us and assign the questions to answer, because
Okay. I'll
otherwise
take.
we could talk until the end of the next day.
Okay. No worries. There are a lot of questions coming up. There are hands risen, and there are questions in there. But my dear colleagues, I'm going to take the privileges of the chair and ask and throw my first question at Stuart. Stuart, this is just fascinating. And I agree with you on almost, I mean, I can see how the sun could be so essential in the symbolism that that the new coinage uses in order to speak to the population. Of course, we all know that the written word does not mean much, you know, if you don't know Arabic. It's the images, right? As Stefan said, it's the images that are very much important. And I just wanted to tell you a number of things, and we're going to talk about this in private, I hope. But the fact that Muhammad is the messenger of God, yeah, and that, i.e., he's the God himself, right? And that I think is very, very interesting. But there are other things, yeah. Okay, let me see. Okay, in the Kharajite coinage, when we talk about no judgment but God's, yeah. So okay, I'm going to bring this in, and we'll talk about it later. A lot of things that you're talking about sounds to me, of course, as being Mithraic, yeah. So I want you to please read my work. It is just incredible, because Mithra is the judge that stands at the end of the Chinwan Bridge, right? He is the ultimate judge. So this business of no judgment but God, but God's judgment, which is very interesting, because it's Kharajite, and Qatari goes to Tabaristan, as you know, for instance. Yeah. That's one thing. But there are a lot of things that I jotted down. The sun symbol in Istar, sun is the entity that gives legitimacy to rulers in the Iranian thought, right? He is the one who gives khwarna. Yeah. Well, the reason I'm insisting on this so much is because I have read Al-Baqarah recently, and I was just like, flabbergasted by the imagery that it uses, and how in fact Mitraic, the symbolisms that and of course, I don't know, I forget when the titles on the surahs were established, but yeah, I forgot that part of it. The other thing is that I want you to keep in mind that shortly after that, the Abbasids, when the Abbasids, and I'm writing about this right now, when the Abbasids take over, right? Mansur Hadi Mahdi, yes, they're on the Khorasan highway, yes, and they're in Ray, they're in Gumis, they're in Tus and Nishabur, right? And they're talking to the and their vizier is you know, the Barakis are there. There are other Iranian viziers around them, right? And they're using the symbolism Hadi, Mahdi, and Mansur. Mansur is victorious, right? You have Sol Invictus in the Roman part of it, right? Defeated son. Yeah. So there is a lot to talk about. I have so much to talk to you about, but this is just my 2 bits of it. Yes, and we will go to the questions now. Please bear with me because I have to make sure that, okay. Okay, the first question is from Amina Katarich. Amina, please excuse me if I have mispronounced your name. She has one question. In Balkan, Bosnia, and Herzegovina, one farmer found some silver and gold Islamic coins around Bielo Polje, Potoki, near Mostar, part Herzegovina, and the person named on that is Hassan of Numismatic. Oh, well, no, okay, I don't understand. Coins are from the period of rule Marwan II. What is the question? Okay, Amina, are you there? Amina, can you hear me? Okay, I think we should go to the second question because I really don't understand that question. Okay, then we have, okay, forget about that. All right, Pedram Parvini asks, why did Arab Muslim rulers keep Sasanian images on the coin? Okay, yeah, that's a generic question, right? What does anybody want to answer that? Oh, Stuart, you're mute.
Yeah, I can probably in my talk I answered it.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It is a mark
Just a
of
moment.
value.
Stefan, I'm sorry, just a moment. Stuart had his hands after you.
Right. So I'm probably going to give the same answer that Stefan is going to give. That
Yeah.
First of all, the Sasanians struck enormous amounts of coins with the image of a Sasanian ruler on it, and so that was kind of the mark of value that everybody recognized. And so people expected to have the coins when they got received coins. They expected it to have the image of a Sasanian ruler on it. I would also add, though, that there is a lot of evidence that the early Muslims in Iran styled themselves after Sasanian kings. And this is very evident in the copper coins, where time and again they adopt, innovative busts of various kinds of Iranian kings and monarchs, and so I think that for many of them it was for both reasons.
May
Okay.
I just add something? So I agree completely with Stuart this regard, but I would make a difference, which also refers a little bit to your talk, between the silver coinage and the copper coinage. In my view of the coinage system, copper coins were always minted by local authorities. They don't reflect the imperial image. They take something from the imperial image, but the decision of what is on the coins is completely local. So we have the same also with the provincial Roman coins. So copper coins, the imperial money, so the silver, this is something where we can build upon series of imperial representation.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you for that. Avoid ask a good question. Can we consider the sword and lash as icons of application of judgment by the ruler corresponding the same attributes corresponding to the same attributes in Allah, connotating the ruler as a symbol of Jalal, as opposed to the prophet as a symbol of Jamal or Rahmat? Anyone?
Yeah, well, yes, I think that image can be interpreted many different ways, but absolutely, there's, and you have the legend Muhammad is the messenger of God on there, which connects that image with Muhammad as a model of socio-political authority. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. The next question is, many thanks for your lecture, Professor. I have two quick questions. This is for you, Stuart. What is the name of the sun god which the circle on the coins represent? Is it Arabic Shamsa, Noha, or Persian Mithra, or the other ones? The other ones. And if the circle is in the crown, is it a real decoration? And the second question is for the spear and sword. Are those real and normal objects, or are they with supernatural power like the weapons in the epic?
Well, as for the second question, you know, I can't say except that I believe they're real. We have a description of that in Tabari, but they're also symbolic, and so they could be both ways. The first question is very interesting, and I've given a lot of thought to this. The first thing I want to say is that oftentimes that these suns that appear on coins are often described by numismatists as stars. And so I want to emphatically say that they're suns, that in literary sources rarely do stars take the same place of importance as the sun. Now, the sun is a symbol that's used widely in Arabia and North Africa. And I cannot pinpoint exactly that image of the sun with a specific cult deity. And my sense is that it does not so much belong to a single cult deity, but is a symbol that has been adopted by many different so-called deities in the pre-Islamic world. One thing that's really important to think about is al-Hajjaj and al-Malik spent most of their adult lives in the Arabian Peninsula. And so we now have them coming to whatever Iran and in Syria in their later years, and very quickly they adopt these symbols. And so there may very well be antecedents to the use of these symbols in the Arabian Peninsula that we don't have access to at the present time. The one other thing I was just going to say with respect to the sun, one of the main arguments for the legitimacy of al-Malik and the Umayyad regime in general was predestination. And the symbol is a very good, the sun is a very good symbol of that. It represents God as an impersonal natural force, which is much the way God would be characterized with predestination.
I'm not sure about that part of it, Stuart. If it is Iranian, which I suspect very much it is, predetermination has no place in it. Yeah.
Well,
because the Iranian setup is, it's just it's not predeterministic. It's free will kind of. Yeah. But I am dying to talk to you.
No, that's great. That's good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So there is another query. I think, Stefan, you can please kindly answer this. Were the, or Stuart or whoever, were the meaningless Greek letters still depicted on Afghan coinage after the arrival of Islam there in the 7th century? Judith Lerner is with us, so she might want to, Dr. Lerner might want, my good friend, might want to chip in on this. But that's the question. Was there Greek letters on Afghan coinage, Sogdian coinage, after the arrival of Islam there in the 7th century?
Actually, Greek letters doesn't play, Bactrian inscriptions play a role, which is a cursive form of Greek. In Syria itself, the Greek becomes even better, and the die engraving becomes better with in coins which show the Byzantine emperor, the contemporary Byzantine emperor Constans II, and the mark of value, the M. So it's kalon, which means good, which is translated, it says tayyib, it says emesa or emesis, and hems in Arabic. The so-called imitations are much better in quality and style than the coins minted in Constantinople. And we can speculate about the meaning of it. So, Andrew Marsham, and recently I also, this is in a publication, is when in his book about the Umayyads, when did the conquering Ummah became aware that they actually have an empire which is different from the Byzantine empire. And this is a process which was at the latest ended with the whole representation of the empire with al-Malik. But in between, we have different stages because the Arab armies tried to conquer the Byzantines. And in 712, there was the last long siege of it. If they had succeeded, the Roman Empire would have continued as an Islamic one, before it was a Christian one and before it was one of the old religions. But because they could not track Constantinople at a certain time, they had to formulate their own imperial ideology, and this is at latest visible with al-Malik. And then also the coinage changed. It became then something which shows the sovereign in the form of the Surat al-Ikhlas.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for that. There is another question about the linguistic dimension of the transition from Greek, Persian, not Farsi, Persian, Greek, Latin, into Arabic. And the questionnaire is wondering whether or not, you know, how did this process work? On coinage, perhaps you some of you would like to pick it up.
Well, I could just talk about the coinage. The coinage in Iran is very interesting. The bilingual, or in some cases trilingual. One of the things that is interesting is in this debate over the nature of God, or the nature of divine judgment. The Harajites project their slogan, they translate it into Pahlavi very early in the year 66. And then in response, the Zuberids also translate their response into Pahlavi. And there's a coin by the Abdulaziz bin Abdullah that Stefan put up. that has the full Shahada translated into Pahlavi, which is one of the earliest statements of the Shahada anyways. So it suggests that a certain engagement between these Arab rulers and the Persian population. But it varies, but that tends to disappear after the introduction of reformed coins.
There's also, of course, the whole question of what difference does it make in what language it is written to your normal public, right? I mean, who are not literate, right? Who might detect the change from one language to the other.
I might just add a point. So there is in the Arab historiography the ta'rib, the Arabization of coinage and administration. What we see with the epigraphic dinar, it is definitely with the coinage, and it comes from top. The research in papyri, which includes documents from Egypt and Nesana, which is in south of Israel, and other parts, shows that it is more a kind of social step-to-step process. In some of the regions, we have a multilingual situation even before. Coptic, Greek in Syria, in Egypt. Then we have Syriac and Greek in Syria and Sham, and this is not a cut from one day to the other to a full epigraphic form and Arabic form. It is in the administration we should look for province to province for the Arabization.
We'll go to Asa. Asa, please, and we revert to the written. Yeah, go ahead, Asa, please.
Oh, thank you so much, Parvane, and thanks so much, Stefan and Stuart, and also Michael. I just had a thought. I was thinking of both of your theories, Stefan and Stuart, on, for example, the globe and the pole, but not just that one. And I was thinking of the Çemberli Taş monument in Constantinople, the column of Constantine. So that is a symbol of Constantinople. It is, well, the sculpture was gone, and we're not sure when, but ostensibly it kind of just marries both of your ideas a little bit, in that you have, it stood in the forum of Constantine, which may also be that ellipse on the pole. And you have, just like in Jerash, you have Constantine. He is holding a globe, which is thought to be Earth, but he's also thought to be the sun god, Sol Invictus, because of the rays of his crown. So you kind of have sun, earth, urbanization, all in this one column, statue as well, and it was on steps, I believe. So just thinking about it, of course, I don't know if how the statue, when it fell, I think it fell in the Middle Byzantine period. So I think it was standing in the late 7th century. But yeah, just a thought. I don't know if you have some ideas about either Stefan or Stuart or both.
Could I say something about that?
Yeah.
Thank you for that reference.
Go ahead,
yes.
Mike, please.
Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, Michael first.
Mike, go ahead.
Okay, well, I think we need to keep in mind some concept of space and time here. That monument existed in Constantinople, but the thinking that went behind the coins took place exclusively in Damascus. That is to say, the new Damascus, the gold coins. Had anybody in Damascus ever seen that pole? I think we need to be realistic about what people actually would be influenced by.
I 100% agree with you, and you're probably right. However, for example, in the Pudinger map, it is depicted as a symbol of Constantinople.
Which of course existed in different places. not just in Constantinople. So in fact, I think we need to think in more generic terms and not with a specific monument which might have influenced the people in Damascus. A monument that they had never seen and perhaps they had no idea existed.
Can I just also add to that? Because I really think there's something to be said here for maybe we're looking at a generic symbol, which is really interesting. But to add to what Asa just said, you know, you have this concept of Kizil Elma, right? When the Ottomans are conquering, well, I don't know actually how far back Kizil Elma goes. You know, the red apple, and it's supposed to be based on this monument for the conquest of Constantinople. So, you know, lots of things in here, but maybe it is a more universal motif. As a map person, I'm also fascinated by the idea of having a world map on coins of some sort, a globe, right? So just...
There's a question related to this, if I may. Abavaydi again asks, I'm going to come to Garth's question after this. Garth, greetings, my warm greetings to you, wherever you are. But Ava was asking in relationship to this sort of symbol, what are the 4 steps under it? What are the 4 steps under it? Very good question.
Onto that?
Yes.
First of all, the cross was very often depicted as being on top of a mountain. In fact, it's I think the Mount of Calvary. It's called Calvary. The 4 steps are kind of an artistic representation of that, or possibly in the minds of the designers, of course, that the cross stood on some sort of what would you call it, a base, and indeed it must have been standing on such a base. So it artistic.
It looks also very much, Mike, it looks very much also like the fire altar. I mean, the steps of the fire altar, no?
Fire altar doesn't have steps, but I suppose the altar stood on it might well have stood on a step platform, but we don't.
Right.
We
Okay.
Don't.
Okay. Let's go to God's question, please. This is for Stefan. Stefan, please explain why you think symbols of urban pride generally, i.e. not of the specific min cities, are appropriate and meaningful in the context of this coinage.
First of all, I agree with Karen Pinto that we have probably more a generic one. And if it's not a generic one, it's maybe more Jerusalem meant with this. And as a symbol of urban pride, as a horse or other images, it can serve many purposes. We have to imagine what the people thought about this, and we don't have and they saw in the cities this monument of urban stately pride, which are the columns. Quite often they have also a globe on top, or a capital on top. And this is more often than not interpreted as representing the earthly globe. And it is a more generic, nothing specific. So in that case, we have in Rasas, in Madaba, and other places, and Constantinople, columns to show the urban imperial pride. So this was part of the ornamentum of a city. And I wouldn't put too much of specific meaning into it, because it is a circulating thing, and people have not always in mind far away the burned column of Constantinople, or even the column at the Bab al-Amud, at the gate of the column in mind. What do they see? They see a pole a globe on a column, as they can see in many cities in Syria and North Africa. Stuart?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question to Stefan. I note that you and Tony Goodwin, when you describe the column on the steps, do not discuss the image of the sun that appears on the coppers, on many of the coppers in Syria, with that image.
That is right.
What is your explanation for that sun?
First of all, I don't think that it is the sun. I think it's what we call in our typography more an asterisk, or a star as an asterisk. So it is a mark within mint administrations. It has no relation to any star constellations. It is as the asterisk which we use in common day written parlance sometimes for one purpose or another. And it is difficult to find out which. If we look at the Roman coinage and the Byzantine coinage, we find sometimes also an asterisk there. And more often than not, it is in the exegue, so where you have the mint abbreviation CON, and then might become a letter and then an asterisk. So I don't see any celestial body in it at all. That because it is part of the administration procedures with the coinage, Tony Goodwin and we didn't put any attention in explaining the column on it. So that is the reason why we leave it out.
Can I comment on the star and the asterisk?
Yeah, Michael, I'll take care of the timing. I just wanted to say to Stefan that Sol Invictus, the Roman Mithraic Sol Invictus, yeah, undefeated sun, victorious sun, Mansur sun, yeah, that, as you know very well, it was quite prevalent in the Roman Mithraic societies up until, you know, the 3rd century at the very least. And then you have the wars that take place with 20-something years of wars with the Sasanian being in Western Asia in general. But okay, there are 2 more questions I want to go to. There are a number of questions. I think we can, if anybody wants to leave, please, it's okay. But I think we can take 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah. But I will leave the discussion. I have.
Yes, you have it. Yes.
To my.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Can I just jump in and make a suggestion before Stefan leaves? I hope that this will see print. They are very good articles, and I think it should be, I don't know, maybe a Festschrift in honor of Professor Bates with his own article. But it looks so good.
Don't talk about it. Stuart and I have been talking about it.
In terms of publication, what I did today is already published, and maybe Merrill or Pavané can distribute this article. It was only a little bit polished and some things added.
I will gladly do so, Stefan. And but keep a version of it. But remember, you know, that we're planning some things. Okay, so there are 2 more questions. Please let me continue. There are 2 more questions. One from Patrick, and the other one from Judith. Judith, where are you? Patrick, you start, please.
Yes. Well, first of all, I need to say, state how I regret that I missed the Stuart's lecture, because probably there might be some answers to my questions already. But the globe on the pole, as you say, if we assume that if we have the spear on the steps as a lens, then if we assume some consistency in the iconography, then this could be also a weapon. And actually, a pole with a ball is a mace, and mace is in itself a symbolically loaded weapon, also associated with sun gods, also with Mithra as well. And going further, the T-shaped object on the steps, in such view, would not necessarily be a cross, but it also might be a officer's cane. We know such T-shaped canes in Byzantine or late Roman army context in Sicily, right? So if there is one weapon on 4 steps depicted on some coins, then this military symbolism might be logical to prevail in the other.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess you're welcome to jump right in. A lot of people have speculated on what that is, and nobody can say you're wrong. It just I think it depends on what it speaks to you. And for everybody, they come at it a little bit differently, and they see something different. I keep seeing this associated with an object that looks like a sun, not just on the coppers, but also in a coinage of North Africa. And in the coinage of North Africa, that image of that sun, almost the exact same, what you call an asterisk, is the main image of one side of the coin, or in Spain at least. And so, but you know, we don't know. So that's everything's possible. Yeah. I would just point out, you do have the with the spear in the what do you call it, with in the niche, and a traditional, one of the traditional coins in Damascus. So that the idea of a weapon, yeah, certainly that appears and occurs. I just, in this instance, I don't see that, but you know, it's just me.
What I really mean is that if you have one symbolically loaded weapon in a separate in this particular function, you know, like you grasp a sort of imagery, then then the expectation is that if you have another object in the same place, and it could be also symbolically loaded weapon, which also is giving the sense of power, or it gives that, yes, we it's not only that this is a sun mace, and then we've got these sun related headed maces in Iranian world, but if it is in the same place as a lance, it somehow clicks, you know, and then we have this T-shaped object where we have to do some gymnastics to get to the cross, while we have exactly this type of object in as this ritualistic officer's cane.
But you're forgetting the origin of those coins with that mark on them, the T-shaped mark, is as evolution from coins that had a cross on them. We're going from the cross to something else. They didn't like the cross because it's Christian, so they changed it slightly. I'm not sure why it all needs to have, they had to see something, they had to have something in mind, they had a mace in mind. They just wanted not a cross, not -a cross. And so they took one of the crossbars off. And why does it have to, you know, that's the evolution. They started with the cross, but they didn't want the cross. They wanted something simpler that sort of looked right. And so, yes, maybe the globe, but still in all, we're making something very, very simple become very, very complicated, I think, if you're trying to read into these substitutions some cosmic significance. It just didn't want to cross on the coins anymore. And they didn't know what to put in place of the cross yet. So there are different experiments and different.
Well, actually, my interpretation is somehow on the opposite pole from the cosmic one. I'm saying that if there are the badges of power like lance, mace, officer's cane, then they really fit well to presenting the authority.
What was al-Malik thinking at that time? Was he really thinking the way you were trying to put into his mind? Was he imagining, should I put a mace on it? Should I put this on it, a symbol? I don't think this kind of terminology or conceptual even entered into it. They wanted a not a cross.
I'm not sure I agree with you, Mike, on that one, but well, it has been wonderful. It has been I hope everybody agrees with me that this has been a fantastic session. Judith, are you around? Judith? I think she had to leave. Okay, you know, there are a lot of thank yous to all of you for an excellent paper and presentation. Laye Ziai Bigdali informs us that has already been a first shrift for Michael, and thank you for advertising it, Laye. There's always time for another one. Yeah. So
What are we doing next year?
Yeah, Mike. You're not supposed to have an input in your own first shrift, you know.
Can I add something? I just wanted to say, Parvane, that when you do these talks with multiple groups, it's incredible the way it generates discussion. I just think it's quite unique and very nicely selected. We're looking forward to next year's clam. So
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, go ahead, Michael.
I said it's nice to see Karen face to face.
Yeah, Karen.
For you, Michael.
Yeah, Karen, thank you so much for all your support. I really have to talk to you, and I will call you. It's way out. Yeah. Okay. If there are no more questions or remarks, or Dr. Bates. Okay, one last question from Ava. Dr. Bates, do you have any idea that repetition of the image of Sasanian kings after Arabization of the coins can refer to the changes in the balance of political power, or being used as a means to evoke empathy with the new political power in territories most resistant to accept its authority, specifically in Ardashir-Khoré? Mike?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I couldn't follow the question. I can't respond.
Oh, okay. So, Ava, I suggest that you, Mike, please put in your email into the. I can give it to you, Ava, Mike's email, and you can email him and be in touch with him. Yes.
Send me an email on the discussion here, actually.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. So if there are no other comments, questions.
Another comment?
Yes?
I want to get back to this business of the asterisk.
Okay.
Let's if you could try to go back to one of my coins and imagine one of the Sasanian coins. You have 4 circles surrounding the king. He rises out in the middle of it. The 4 circles or 3 circles are the world. And what do we have outside those circles on all 4 sides? A crescent and a asterisk. It's got to be the sun and the moon circling around the earth, circling around, centering around the king, if you like. He's at the center of the universe. Okay, there it is. But what's going around the edge of the universe for a person of the 7th century are the sun and the moon, and the asterisk is surely the sun. And I think an asterisk is always a sun in the 7th century or medieval context. It's only in modern times that we've come to think of it more as a star than a sun. Even the star on the Turkish flag was not originally a star, it was the sun and the moon. It makes perfect sense, and it makes more sense than our identification of these things as crescent, star, and crescent.
And it makes a really good point that we all need to keep in mind that, you know, we are so used to interpreting visual symbols from our perspective of today, right? That we really need to think about how they morphed and the meanings changed, or the meanings moved on, or some element of it was carried on. I'm really fascinated by this concept of maybe this idea of the Kizil Elma, which is what the Turks use in their conquests of, you know, conquering the desired city. And then when the desired city is conquered, it moves on. So, you know, Kizil Elma was Constantinople. After Constantinople is conquered, then it moves on to the next places. I'm wondering whether it's part of an earlier motif, right? Which is what Stefan and Stuart were referring to in their talks, right? This more, you know, maybe we're seeing a more universal motif that we've lost an understanding of. So in keeping with what you were saying, Michael, that when you see an asterisk sign like that, it's not necessarily a star, that's a more recent meaning.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us. The 37 of you are still with us. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Stefan. Stuart, thank you, Stefan. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.